if you're so focused on growth and revenue and all of these different things, there's clearly so many different streams of revenue coming into the business, so many sources of business, whether it's outbound calling or lead gen, any type of ad spend whatsoever. There's a million different ways that are trying to bring business in. But as we've experienced, very, very few people are like focusing on.
I was at the grocery store. I had the whole family in the car. I go into Vons. I'm trying to be as fast as possible. I'm in the ice cream aisle. And then a woman comes up to me pushing a stroller. I thought she was asking for money. I'm like, I have no cash. She goes, no, food for my kids. I have 4 kids. So I feed these Red Barons or whatever. And it was like they're $5.99 a piece if you buy 4. And I was like, why don't we get you 4 of these, right? She reaches for this other one over here that's like some brand I don't even know that was like $14 for one. And she's like, my child likes the...
Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Who Cares podcast.
I'm Jeff Jackel.
I'm Jay O'Brien. I've got exciting news.
What is it that you're going to Hawaii in like a few days and then I won't see you maybe ever again?
I mean, that's exciting for me.
Sure.
But what's exciting for us is, and I haven't looked at the numbers for sure, but like we have more than grown by 200% in the last few weeks.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Our audience, our listeners.
Oh, yeah. I mean, starting at almost 0, that's not hard. But, I mean, I'm proud.
I'm just saying, based on what I've gathered from folks reaching out to me, we know that Peter Jackel, he was the staple that started it all.
Sure. And we're doing awesome with the, like, early 80s crowd.
And a good friend of mine, Garrett Fry, has texted me with his thoughts, his comments, his feedback, and I didn't know he was a listener. So that right there, we've more than doubled for sure.
1 became 2 at least.
And I feel like there's just at least one more. That's,
We also haven't, I mean, this is going to come out way later than we will have, but like we also haven't really sort of like launched. We haven't really like told too many people yet. We're about to.
Yeah.
But I dropped it last night. I was in a meeting at the club and I was like, well, we did a podcast episode the other day and someone was like, you have a podcast? I'm like, yeah, they thought it was like so cool. And then I pulled it up on Apple Podcasts and I looked at it and I was like, whoa, that's you and Jay. Like,
that's a photo of you.
That's you guys'
and
faces.
I'm sitting with you right here in real life.
Yeah, it's great. They were asking immediately, like, who are the guests? Who are you kind of out? And we're like, well,
some weeks Jeff's the guest and other weeks Jay's the guest.
Like, no guests just yet, but like if you had suggestions.
Well, actually, so we are lining up some guests, which is cool.
We are.
I actually got this text from Garrett and I was like, it sounds like we just got our first comment,
Not first. I told you last week, we've had a couple of people that said some wild shit.
Oh, yeah, the haters.
Well, no, just that we're grown adults talking about Disneyland. I don't even get it.
That's not even a good one. I mean, like, that's not even something to hate on. At least talk about my fat face or something.
Yeah, say that, like, I don't know, why does he wear the same shirt every day?
All right, so are we getting right into it?
I don't think so. I mean, we can. We don't, we need some feedback to know whether people like but like, you want to talk about Hawaii? You want to talk about anything? I mean, you're going on a cool trip.
I'm very excited for Hawaii. So I have yet to go to these 2 islands, and I'm obsessed with Hawaii. You know that me and Ash dream of moving there one day.
You
it's
do?
All about like
I've never heard you mention it.
And it's all about like, where's the exact neighborhood? Where's the exact this? We've done like full, research trips. I mean, you remember the time that we each went to Maui and didn't stay with each other for a week.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
We both stayed on opposite sides of the island.
I do. I think your actual quote was, okay, cool, I'll link up with you next week. To your wife.
Yeah. It was great.
But this is a baby moon.
Yeah, it's a baby moon.
That's cool.
It's coming up quick. Yeah, super excited for Hawaii and for the baby, But these 2 islands, the Big Island and Kauai, I have yet to go to. And my excitement around going to Kauai is very similar to my excitement that I had around going to Japan and Switzerland.
Why?
So Japan and Switzerland were both 2 spots on my bucket list that lived there for a very, very long time. It had like significant meaning to me and just for so long never got around to going there. So there was always like, man, that's like, I have so much curiosity around that. And then when I finally went, I was like, God, this feels so good to finally be here.
And you feel similar about Kauai?
I do. Yeah. In fact, like a year or two ago, my sister asked me, she's like, if you could go anywhere, like anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would it be? I was like, Kauai. She's like, what the fuck?
See, I mean, the audience doesn't know this, but like you are so well traveled internationally to like the farthest depths of everywhere that like Kauai feels, especially for someone who lives in Southern California and it's 5 hours away, feels so pedestrian for it, for doing something that's like, what about the Big Island? Are you just as excited about that or not?
Not really. Ash is actually, I think, more excited for that because of where we're staying. She's like knows all about this spot and like is super excited to stay there. So
do you think maybe do a little fun thing because you'll miss, maybe there won't be any episodes. Maybe I'll try to do something while he's gone, but maybe while you're there, I don't know, look at the experience that you have at each one of these places a little bit differently now that you can maybe come back and talk about little things that they did or your experience.
I will do that. I will do that.
Because one of them is like a gnarly resort that you're super excited about that's supposed to be really good, right?
Yeah. I mean, a few of them are, which is interesting because we usually do like Airbnbs and like have like it all dialed on the North Shore of Oahu. We're not doing that this time. We're staying in resorts each time, which is different for us.
Yeah, that's so weird. You like to pretend that you live there.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole idea, right? If you're going to actually consider moving somewhere, you want to feel that way,
Yeah.
This will not feel that way. But anyway, I'll get to explore 2 islands I've never been to before. And like, we have a car at both places, so we'll go all over and really get a lay of the land, if you will, as my dad used to say. Let's get a lay of the land.
That's such a baby boomer like phrase.
Yeah, we went to the Bahamas one time and he's like, we landed there and whatever. He's like, so I'm thinking we go to the grocery store, I got a car, we'll drive around the whole island. That way we've got a lay of the land and we could figure out what we do the rest of the week. I was like, nah, let's just like stay here and go to the casino and start drinking.
I do like to do that though, first thing.
You do?
I mean, not, but I think about like the resort. Like I like to get there. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's like.
Yeah, but a lay of the land at the resort is not a lay of the land. That's just checking out the resort. He's saying, let's get in the car,
drive around, and
let's go drive for 5 hours. Which I will do that in Hawaii. But I really have no idea. I have no interest in doing that anymore.
I've done it on Maui once with my sister. We got a Jeep, open top, and just like drove the whole island.
Yeah, it takes a very, very long time.
It does. You can cut right through the middle, but it's still a long time.
Yeah, there's no cutting through. I got tricked into the road to Hana. I've known about it like forever, and anyone who's ever done it is like,
don't do it.
Either A, don't do it, or B, you'll be glad you did it. I never want to be glad I'm done with something. I want to be glad while it's happening. Like, this is great. Not like, oh yeah, you'll love it. Like, or you'll love that it's over. So I've always avoided it like the plague. And then we were at this bar and we were talking about this waterfall and the guy's like, oh yeah, it's right here. I was like, I see it on the map. I feel like you have to go through the road to Hana to get there. He's like, oh, no, go through this, like, go around the southeast side and you cut through and you do this. And he's using words like that. Like, you'll cut through, you'll zip around, I'm like.
Words that sound fast.
Makes it sound quick.
Yeah, but no.
Bro, there was nothing quick about that. It was the road to Hana.
Do you think you'll be glad you did it and you'll enjoy doing it while you do it are mutually exclusive?
So, yeah, you could enjoy a workout while you're working out, and you could also be glad it's done.
Yeah, so maybe that's what they meant.
Right? No, that's definitely not what they meant. Because then the follow-up is, would you do it again? They're like, no. Once is enough. You're like, okay, yeah, you didn't like it.
Yeah, it's kind of like your question of where would you go for 2 weeks and you could never go back.
What's yours, by the way?
Where I would go
the question is, if you could go anywhere in the world for 2 weeks, the rule is you have never been there before, but you can also never go back ever again. Where do you go?
I don't know why this jumps out of me, but I feel like mine would be New Zealand because it's so far away. Australia is somewhere that I haven't been, but I feel like if I went, I'd want to go again. I have friends who like live half the year there and say it's like the best ever, but it feels a lot like where we live.
Yeah.
So I think I would go back there. So I'd pick New Zealand. Okay. We are now going to jump into what today's topic is about.
All right, great.
Which is a topic that I'm surprised in 10 episodes we haven't even brushed on yet because it's a huge part of our lives. We talk about it all the time. It's the law of human reciprocity or the law of reciprocity, which essentially says if you do something thoughtful or kind for somebody else, they are likely to have a knee-jerk reaction to do something that is equally, if not more thoughtful for you in return. It's today we can talk about the psychology behind why giving ultimately leads to getting, even if that is not what your intention is to start.
Love it. Yeah. So I'm actually going to tell a story that the vast, huge audience that we had on the Lyft podcast, which I think actually did pretty good.
Put a little link in there. If you like Seth Godin's Akimbo and you think he is brilliant, you will think that the Lyft is like, okay.
Yeah, if Seth Godin's an A+, we'd like to think that we got to at least a C-.
Yeah, or like that we were accepted into the class in the first place.
Yeah.
We sat in the back row and did nothing.
So, again, Garrett Fry, a huge, massive fan, listener. He's smashing like buttons and subscribes. Not really, I don't know that, but I do appreciate your support, so I love you so much, Garrett. He definitely listened to the Lyft, and so he'll know this story already, but the story is about the most expensive pot pie I've ever had.
Oh, good.
This is a perfect illustration of the law of reciprocity. And you should be thinking of an example as well, because I'm sure there's many in your own life. But in 2007, I took my buddy Russ. I know, Jeff gets super anxious. He's already twitching a little bit when I mention.
He won't stop talking about
when
this
I
guy.
mention a good friend who's not him. So we go to this bar in Huntington Beach that surprisingly has just a banger of a pot pie. And in 2007, I was 21 years old, working an hourly job, still wrapping up school, not making any money, right? We go there, and that particular night, there's like a doorman outside, and he's like, there's a cover because there's a live band playing. And we're like, what's the cover? He's like, $5. Like, well, we're out. And we didn't have cash on this, right?
No.
So we're like, yeah, I mean,
it wasn't just like on principle.
Well, I mean, it's probably all of that, and I didn't have $5. It's probably all of that. So this guy behind us is like, hey, they're with me, opens the door, we walk through, and I'm thinking, oh, this guy must own the place. Like, that's pretty cool. Well, then I turn around, and he gives the guy $10. So he pays the cover for me and Russ. And I'm like, it just hit me so hard. I'm like, dude, that was like so nice. Like, wow, he did not have to do that. So we sit down, and I tell the server at some point, hey, like, he was with his wife. I go, I'm paying for that guy's bill tonight. So when it comes time, bring it to me. I'm paying for it. Don't tell him. Just like, it's taken care of. Just never present him with the bill. So she's like, oh, okay, really? And I'm thinking, well, there goes half of a paycheck.
Why? You thought a pot pie could be that much money?
Well, no, I mean, I wasn't making much money, and I'm paying for mine, and I'm paying for his, and paying for his wife. Well, what happened was about halfway through, he stands up. This guy stands up. He's like, hey, good to see you, buddy. It's his son and his son's wife. I'm like, oh, shit.
More people.
More people. And so the server comes by. She's like, hey, they're now a party of 4. Like, do you want me to just like split the check? And I'm like, I can't do that. No. I have to pick up the whole thing. There's the half the paycheck right there. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that ended up being, I don't know, probably like $120 or something like that. And I'm paying for my meal. The point is, this guy gives me $5 indirectly, sure, and I'm spending $120 to feed his whole family. So why do you do that? Like, you just there's a profound impact of just gratitude when someone does something exceptionally nice for you, or something that's clearly out of the blue, and you just can't help but have this knee-jerk reaction to reciprocate in some way.
Yeah. No, that's I was racking my brain while you were saying that, because I've heard it before, of something. And for some reason, for me, it's easier to think of something that I did. I don't know how many experiences there are where that I've seen it come back around. But one thing that was cool, because I like to try to teach this to the kids. So last year, the year before, when did we take them to Hawaii? Last summer, we stayed at 2 different places. The second place that we went to, there was like a lazy river, or not a lazy river, like a lagoon between you, the resort, and the ocean, whatever. And we got there, there was a family that was leaving as we were checking in, and they gave us a raft, right? And they weren't going to use the raft anymore. They gave us the raft, and the kids thought it was the coolest. They're just giving it to us, that we don't have to buy it. I'm like, no, they're not going to use it anymore. Thank them and explain to them what we were doing. So, of course, I've got 2 kids. So we go to the ABC store, one of like 100 trips to the ABC store, and get a second raft, like one for each kid. And so then as we were going through, they wanted different things. And instead of being like, well, you only need these 2, my plan was kind of like, hey, I'm going to just keep getting all of these rafts that you guys want. I want the tiger one. I want the shark one. And we like amassed probably 10 floaties throughout the whole thing. But my plan the whole time was at the end, I'm going to go down to the lobby. And we did. As we were leaving, you'd take them all down to 2 trips. And I had the kids pick out families and give them the rafts so that they could experience the exact same thing that we did. And they absolutely loved it. They still talk about it.
That's really cool. Super powerful to teach how to give back like that.
And it costs way less than your pot pie, I'm sure. I mean, ABC store, but
has to be.
Yeah.
So as this translates to business, what's interesting about what we talk about a lot of times and what we do as a company and whatever, it stems from, it's funny. It's like, this is not a groundbreaking philosophy, and it's sad that sometimes it's perceived that way. But when you take care of your customer base or your clients in a way that is exceptionally well, or at least out of the blue, where it's like, whoa, I didn't expect that. I paid you to do this and you did this, which has nothing to do with anything. Mm-hmm. It makes the customers feel a certain way. Thus, the law of reciprocity ticks in, and there you go. Like you see it there. So I want to kind of illustrate how a business owner can think about this, because if you're so focused on growth and revenue and all of these different things, there's clearly so many different streams of revenue coming into the business, so many sources of business, whether it's outbound calling or lead gen, any type of ad spend whatsoever. Like there's a million different ways that a million different efforts, I should say, that are trying to bring business in. But as we've experienced, very, very few people are like focusing on the people who are already taking care of them. It's like, what if you, and that's just businesses in general. So it's like, if you were to focus on them and do things long after the transaction has taken place that are thoughtful and remarkable and personal to them, that becomes, unfortunately and sadly, the unexpected out of the blue thing. Whoa, what the hell? Like, this person's been paid, like our deal is done. Why are they still like taking care of me like a human being? And therefore there's this knee-jerk reaction for reciprocity. So it serves like a selfish component, right? Like as a business owner, you're like, oh wow, I take care of these people, they take care of me. That's actually now a new source of business and a new revenue stream. So I want to talk a little bit about the difference between generosity and what could be perceived as manipulation.
Wow. So I think there's
back to you.
All right. So I think there's two parts to it. Not only does it have to feel like it's something that's out of the blue, which I think we could talk for a while about how that's very easy to do currently because so few people are doing it. But I think the other element of it that's absolutely required, there's two. That is one, and the other one is that it has to feel selfless. So whether you are somebody that's trying to do it
has to be selfless or has to feel selfless.
I think it has to feel, I know it has to feel selfless to the recipient. I don't actually think that it has to be entirely selfless. We talk a lot about there's two different kinds of people, two different motivations for people when they start to take care of folks or start to make a commitment in their business to go above and beyond, surprise and delight, create, something that's beyond the expectation in terms of experience. One side's motivation is, my people, they just deserve to be treated well. They put food in my kid's mouth, a roof over my head, et cetera. I'm so thankful for them. Or I just love what I do and I really love my clients or customers. The other side is people who want an ROI. Like they actually are going to measure it. And like, we don't know really the demo of people who are listening to this, but if you are in sort of a more sophisticated or larger business and you run, let's say, marketing or you run revenue for a larger enterprise, all of this has to be measured. Like you've got someone to answer to. So we totally understand that. I understand when that's in more solopreneurship roles or industries, when somebody is in financial advisory or is, in wealth management and insurance, et cetera, they're not really equipped or set up to kind of measure these things. So they just have to kind of feel it. But I think, so I don't really think that the motivation has to be entirely pure. We preach that and we say it should be pure and you'll just be very pleasantly surprised, but it certainly has to feel selfless, right? So on the first side though, I want to jump to the bar is so low for doing things that are out of the ordinary or that are beyond expectation. Like an example I give all the time is like when I'm walking into, and this isn't business scenario, but when I'm walking into like a store, department store, a bank, whatever it is, you're about to ask me why the hell would I ever go to a bank? Sure. And there's like let's say an older woman behind me and she's walking through the parking lot. I will stop there and I'll hold the door and I'll wait sometimes 5-10 seconds and she'll walk through. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, they will stop and look at you and be like, young man, thank you so much. For like a split second, you feel good about yourself. You're like, my parents raised me right. But instantly you're like, that sucks. Like this, she's normally getting her own door. Like no one's doing this. This is the first time this has happened this week. So that's something that's like so elementary that's just like, I don't know, from a time gone by when that was like, it would have been completely unacceptable if you didn't do that. And now it's just not common. But it kind of illustrates how times have changed and how people are kind of used to being, or everyone's moving too quickly. And so people are used to being dismissed or not being treated to a level that's higher than just what's the bare minimum. So it's very, very easy to do what we're talking about in terms of creating that experience.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess, and I don't want to like be on a soapbox too much of like, you guys should be so nice to everybody like we are, you know, because that's, maybe it feels like that sometimes, but
that's not that nice. That's what I'm illustrating. Like, that's not a big deal.
There's a million things like that though, you know, like, I'll see someone like unloading their car to go into their, unit, like when I'm on vacation or something, it's like, oh dude, like same thing, you know, like older people, like I'm just going to unload their car and put it in their condo for them. And they're like, what the hell is this guy doing? Right. And you're like, don't even like commend this. Like, this is no problem. Like, you know, I'll be done in 2 seconds and like everyone's life is easier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess, yeah, the through line of doing nice shit is a good thing to do.
But the idea of not having an expectation is where we should go.
Yeah. So I guess in my personal life, the way I've always approached this was I've never had an expectation. And you mentioned because the way in which you were raised, that's exactly right. Like my grandparents, my mom, like just doing things a certain way because that's just what you do. I guess when you talk about it from like the perspective of a CFO or someone who's like, yeah, that's really cool, but I don't have budget to just be the nicest human alive. Like I got to report back to whoever and it's got to make sense on the bottom line. I get that too. I totally get that. And if you were saying I'm going to budget $100K a year to just like knock the socks off of every customer we've ever done business with and do all this nice shit for them all the time. And, you know, at the end of the year or years, you're like, yeah, that was really nice. And I'm glad I stoked people out, but our business isn't doing so well and I need to cut costs. That's going to be the first thing to go. I get it. I guess like the difference between reciprocity and the kind of understanding that is a byproduct of generosity versus I'm going to do this to manipulate people, like totally two different things. And you can sniff out the latter very easily because people almost always misstep there anyway because their intentions are wrong. What I'm saying, and I guess what you're saying too, is that, okay, go ahead and drop that $100,000 and because you just want to be nice, right? And because business is actually going well, so who cares? Let's see what happens. You'd probably be surprised to see in 12 months, if you were tracking this, you'd be like, oh, wow, like we got all this new business from these existing customers who were also on these like touches that we were sending out, like whatever it is, you know, and you're like, oh, I guess like what goes around really does come around, you know? So there is that inevitability. And I guess what I'm trying to say is if you're focusing so much on new business and acquisition, all these different streams of revenue, as every company does, there is one glaringly red hot, obvious one that's right there that most people are neglecting. And you can kind of check a few boxes by taking care of that.
Yeah. What I think is funny is because so many business owners and operators think with a marketing mind. They literally think on the ROI side. It's not to say that once they understand this, when we talk to them about it, that they don't want to take care of people, make them happy and treat them right or level up that. But they will refer to this as like campaigns, right? Like they'll refer to like what we talk about with just going above and beyond, creating surprise and delight moments for people as campaigns. They think of it as marketing. So we almost have to not manipulate, but we almost have to like speak that language just to get them to try something.
Just to get the ear. Yeah.
Exactly. You get the ear to get them to do that. And then, 6 months down the line, they'll start realizing that it's, so we're kind of manipulating them into doing the right thing.
But you know what's funny is like, we're trying to teach people that this law of reciprocity that you see every single day in your life, out in and outside of business, that, wow, it's actually something to focus on in your business, right? Like there is a component in there that's pleasing the customer base and it's also growing your business. Like that's a mutually beneficial outcome. So maybe think about that. And then when we give all these examples, like the pot pie, whatever, it's like all of those have absolutely nothing to do with running a business or anything. And we could go on forever. And I mean, people who are listening to this can probably think of a dozen times where they've been on the receiving end or the giving end of that. And you're like, oh, wow, I guess that principle, like, yeah, I don't even think about it. It's just so there because you're impacting the way someone feels. Why not focus on that in every aspect of my business or every aspect of my life, including business?
Well, so I don't know if I've ever thought about it like this, but essentially we always talk about a lot how even at a corporate level, people think of like it's B2B and I'm actually buying from a business. You're not. You're actually working with a human being. It's if I haven't said it on here, one of my favorite lines from The Family Man, Nicolas Cage, shout out, Wall Street.
You find a quote there.
I love it. Wall Street, Main Street, it's all people and I know people, right?
Business is business. Wall Street, Main Street, it's just people. And I know people.
So no matter how big or small a company is, it's one person to another person. So that's a good example. Let's say that I happen to be out to dinner with you. Friend, we don't do any business together. And I watch something that you do in the pot pie example. Or let's say somebody sees me hold the door open for somebody and coming through, and they happen to think that that's extraordinary, right? So now let's put it in a business setting. The next day, somebody says, hey, I'm thinking about hiring Jay, and I'm just your friend. I'm thinking about hiring Jay. The first thought that goes through my head is, Jay's a fucking good guy. Like last night I was with him, or last week I was with him. He did this thing with a family, and he did their pot pie, whatever. It had absolutely no business context, but you're a person, and so it speaks to your character,
right?
That's all that it's doing. You reminded me of something. Last year, I was speaking at a conference, and Brent Koch, I don't know if he's on social, but we'll mark him up. There was a shortage of rooms. Somehow they ran this conference. There was a shortage of rooms. I got there really late. Somehow I still had a room. And he's like a big kahuna at the company that is throwing this whole conference. And there was a gal that came up and she was having an issue. Like she wasn't going to have a room. They were telling her to go to this hotel that's like right next door, not like huge inconvenience. And he was overhearing it. And I saw him watch him walk over to the next counter. And then 3 minutes later, they come back to the lady and they're like, you know what? We found a room for you. And she's like, what do you mean? And then she figured it out. And she figured out like, oh, he just gave up his room that he's had all day and whatever. He had to go get his stuff out of it. And when she was like, I can't do that. I can't take your room. His response was, stop it. Don't mention it. My dad would kill me. His dad's gone. My dad would kill me if I even hesitated 2 seconds to do what I just did.
That's awesome. I love that.
But the illustration is it's a bygone era of where these things were not even a thought. You would just do them for somebody, probably because people ran in smaller groups and everybody heard everything that you ever did, or it's maybe chivalry. But it's to say that like we have, whether it's personally or in business, we have a huge opportunity now because it's become rare.
Now, she was surprised to see the bill because he gave out the presidential suite.
For sure.
Yeah. So it was a little, he did it as a goof as well.
So 5 a night? I would think of a time that someone did something thoughtful for you. Like even something tiny, like the impact that it has when you receive a handwritten note out of the blue, right? Or, I mean, even now when you get a handwritten thank you for like the kids do this, you'll find out in a few years, like, at birthday parties, all the kids write a handwritten thank you note after every single one. But every time I receive it, it's like, whoa, and they're all doing it because their parents are trying to teach them, right? But like, that. Right? But try to think of instances where someone did something for you. It doesn't have to be buying you something. It could just be a handwritten note. It could be letting you cut in line. It could be anything. Like try to get in tune with the way that makes you feel. And even if you don't reciprocate for whatever reason, time, whatever, like you kind of try to realize you have that. Everyone has that knee-jerk reaction. It's just psychological. There's nothing you can do about it. And also, and this, by the way, is where the thought of like, is it manipulative? I think that comes from it comes from a feeling of guilt that gets created. That's the only reason I can ever think of when someone says like, does that feel manipulative? Are you trying to get a result? I think it's because what they think is, if you don't reciprocate or if you don't say thank you or for whatever it is, you would feel guilty for not, which kind of just emphasizes the understanding of the psychological principle because you're recognizing that someone just did something super thoughtful for you.
This is actually one of my biggest pet peeves because we obviously have experienced like every shape and size of this. But when people are like, okay, I'm totally bought in. Like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to, I'm going to take care of my top 100 people or whatever. And then I'm going to measure the results, do all this stuff, whatever. The people who didn't reciprocate, they're pulled off.
Right.
I'm not taking care of them anymore. It's like, God, you really don't get this at all. Like, the manipulation and like the guilting someone into it thing, like, again, it's such an elementary principle that applies in every aspect of your life. I'm just saying, also do this in business. So like, I'm going to give you an example. This is going to like really show you the polarizing difference of, oh, this is a manipulative like campaign or whatever the hell you want to call it,
marketing
like
versus
effort,
hospitality,
or like, oh no, I guess it's not. I guess that's just how humans interact, like the pot pie. So, I was telling you this story the other day. So in October, November, my dad was sick. He was in the hospital. So, and this was in Vegas. And if anyone listening to this has ever gone through this before, you know that if you're not feet on the ground for your family, like, and you just rely on the system,
when you're in a medical facility of any kind,
very, very, very risky, and things almost always go haywire in my experience. So we had to hire a private caregiver to be there, to be the eyes and ears for my dad while we were flying back and forth and doing things like that, right? Her name was Jessica. So she is in this group thread with me and my sisters and just like all over it, like giving us the updates on everything, like totally making a huge difference. So obviously that's like, to us, to her, maybe she's just doing her job, which she's not. I mean, she's really going above and beyond. To us, it's impacting us in a huge way. Every day we're sending food, breakfast, lunch, dinner to the whole nursing station as well as her, right? So fast forward, my dad, we pull him out, we bring him to Orange County, and she gets word of that. She was just so attached to him that like she walked out the hospital with me into the medical transport van, like, and she was emotional, like saying goodbye to my dad. Like, it was wild. But again, that impacts you in a way where like, dude, she really, really cared, So when she learned that we brought him back to Orange County and like we got settled in here, she booked a flight to come. Now she's no longer on the clock, right? Like, she's no longer a part of the equation, and she won't be part of the equation in Orange County, And
it's not a job. She's not getting paid.
In fact, she's the one paying, right, for the flight and to like figure out where to stay, because she actually cares about him as a human that much, right?
She probably also cared about the three of you guys who were taking good care of her for taking care of your dad.
Yeah, yeah. So like that impacted us in such a way where we're like, oh my God, like we have this timeshare in Hawaii, and she's got this daughter, and they're I don't think they've ever been to Hawaii, and we're like, we're sending them to Hawaii. Like, when she gets here, we're going to surprise her. And like, I mean, so you look at this chain of events. It's like, we hired a caregiver, like she took care of us. So we like sent food every day, and then this, and then this, and whatever.
It's a ping pong back and forth that you're just consistently reciprocating.
And the gestures are getting bigger and bigger and bigger because you just feel, so again, you could say, oh, I felt guilted into her flying to Orange County, so I sent her to Hawaii. Or like, no. And also, she flew to Orange County to manipulate me to send her to Hawaii. Like, no. Like, this is just like a natural byproduct of how humans interact with one another. And so all we're saying is, maybe you consider throwing a layer in this in your business, because if you know what goes around comes around, it actually will be great for the customer. It'll be great for you. And to me, there's no ounce of manipulation involved.
Yeah. I think that there's, when people view it that way, they might be holding on to any time that they ever had where maybe something just was not reciprocated. And so they're looking at the glasses half empty instead of half full.
Yeah.
Right? Like you do something for someone and you feel nothing, or you feel like something was that somebody wasn't grateful for something, or maybe they were ingrateful. And I don't know, that's probably like a bigger topic about finite mentality and abundance mentality, and trying to see, or some people are wired into holding on to negative things that happen in situations like this.
Yep.
And not being as inspired by or remembering the good things that happen. Just as we're telling a million stories, I have this thing that I haven't told you about from a few nights ago that as you're saying this, I could have looked at it as a negative and whatever, but I was at the grocery store. I had the whole family in the car, and we were on the way home. It was the night that I was doing the sleepover camp out in the living room, and I couldn't get the s'mores stuff at Trader Joe's and whatever. So anyway, I stopped by Vaughn's across the street. I go into Vaughn's. I'm trying to be as fast as possible. I'm in the ice cream aisle, and then a woman comes up to me pushing a stroller, and she asked me if I couldn't really understand what she was saying. English wasn't her first language, but I thought she was asking for money. I'm like, I have no cash. She goes, no, food for my kids. I have 4 kids. So I said, okay, I'm in a rush. I got to pick out the ice cream, but what would you like? And she said, pizza, frozen pizzas, chicken, whatever it was. So I find the ice cream, whatever. I take her over to the frozen pizzas, and we're going to look at through these things, and I see this one a deal.
She reaches at the top of the freezer. You're reaching for the bottom of the freezer,
right? So I see these Red Barons or whatever, and it was like
Red Baron's insane.
They're so good.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
they're
good.
mine, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna have a frozen pizza, Red Baron.
Yeah.
Hopefully they sponsor. So anyway, you could get. It was a thing. It was like they're $5.99 a piece if you buy 4 or whatever the heck the thing was. And I was like, why don't we get you 4 of these, right? And she was like. She reaches for this other one over here that's like some brand I don't even know that was like $14 for one. And she's like, my child likes the cheese in the crust. I'm scouring the Red Baron side. I'm scouring the Red Baron side for like if there's any cheese in the crust. And what's going through my head is like, lady, I am a bargain shop. Like when I go to the grocery store, I
don't even get cheese in my crust.
I don't get the cheese in my crust. I'm going to go for the Red Baron. That's a simple one. You're asking me to feed your kids. I'm offering you 4 pizzas, not just one. And you want the cheese. So finally I was like, well, here's the deal. I can do that, but I'm going to get you 1 or 2 of them. I can get you 4 like your kids. She had 4 kids. One of them's little. The one in the stroller was like 2 years old. So finally she's like, oh, okay. So I have her pick the things. We go. I throw it in the cart. Or no, I'm just holding it. I had a basket. She starts following me around the side to the front, and I turn around, she's gone. And I'm like, what in the heck has happened? And then she comes around the side with 2 boxes of ice cream things of like a lot like popsicles and whatever. And she goes, for their desserts. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm going to get the pizzas. She's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get you these 4 Red Baron pizzas. The ice cream, it probably won't keep anyway, but this is what I'm going to do. And so then we go to the check stand, and she doesn't walk through the check stand with me. She goes, do you mind if I meet you at the front? And I'm like, okay. So I buy all the stuff and I go to the front and she's gone. And I turn around and I see her walking through the thing, asking every other person there was to help her out for whatever, for the same. So she's doing.
What's the moral of this story?
The moral of this story is I walked out and because Ash, I stood outside of the place. But so here's the deal. I guess the moral is what I'm thinking is I left that thinking that was a little shitty. Like I did the thing and I felt a little shitty only because she clearly wanted more, wasn't showing any kind of being grateful for what it was. Not that I needed to be thanked, but it was kind of like it felt a little, give an inch, take a mile kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. And so, but it's kind of like a matter of perspective, what I was just saying about like, if anybody views it the other way, I think they're holding on to times that they maybe did something that they thought was generous or thoughtful or selfless or whatever, and they didn't quite get the reaction that they want. So I have 2 choices after that scenario. I can either walk away from that and be like, dude, that kind of sucked. Like I was doing something I thought was generous and she wasn't very grateful. She was clearly looking for more or just wanted to grab, and I feel like I was taken advantage of. Or what I chose to do was say, I mean, look, she might really, really need this. So her doing this, she doesn't really know how that's coming off. She just wants as much as she can for the kids. And either way, the thing was $20 or whatever it is, regardless of whether her intentions were good or not, she needs it more than I do. Right. And now I'll view it. And it makes you, if you keep that attitude about it, even when there's a kind of a questionable situation when you give,
Yeah.
it makes you do it the next day.
You zoom out, you look at the macro, you're like, this person's like on the side of an off ramp asking for cash with a sign. And like, people are like questioning, like, what are they going to use the money for? Like, I don't know, but like, I know that they're in the heat asking for money and I'm on my way to golf.
Right.
So here's $20 and everything hopefully shakes out, in the end.
Yeah. And also for me, there's an added thing, which I think you're going to absolutely love. Will be one of your favorite things.
What, you got the popsicles?
You have them here? They're in the freezer? No, it's you. So that the same thing would have played out the exact same way if I was alone or if my kids and Ash were waiting in the car. But when I get back to the car and everyone's like, why the heck did you take so long? And why were you standing out in front of the thing looking like an idiot, looking around or whatever?
Those are all valid questions.
Of course they are. But you've got a 6 and 8 year old almost in the car, and you can very quickly explain, here's what happened, here's what daddy did, and here's why. Like all those things that you're, yeah.
Here's what I would have done.
What?
First of all, there's no chance you catch me in a grocery store ever.
I know you don't run errands.
But let's just say that I land in one somehow, and this woman says, hey, I need some pizzas or whatever. I'm saying, hey, I'm going to get whatever I need, and then I'm going to check out. Whatever you can grab between now and then, we'll go through the checker, and that's the end of it. I'm not following you to an aisle. I'm not shopping with you. We're not even having a conversation. Grab what you want, and I'll be there in probably 90 seconds.
I can't even imagine this because I can't picture you in a grocery store.
I know. It's impossible. Anyway, let's wrap this up.
Yep.
So actually I have some asks here. We were talking about stories. So in the comments, we would love to hear stories, like a time in which you did this for someone or someone did this for you.
And remember,
share a pot pie story.
Yeah, and remember, it doesn't have to be something that cost any money. It doesn't have to be expensive. It's just something that was intentional. We might have to change this, but I'm going to go ahead and say you can email an audio clip to whocares@clientgiant.com. Just make a recording of your thing, send it via email to whocares@clientgiant.com. Like and subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah,
set notifications.
Just kind of knock it out, get out of the way.
Yeah, do it once, and then it's done forever.
I was at Orange Theory this morning. They're like, "Hey guys, we're really looking for reviews. Really looking for." I'm like, anytime anyone asks for me for a review, I'm like, I'm just gonna do it right now.
Yeah,
it'll be done in 30 seconds.
Yeah, knock it out.
Done.
All right, do it now.
So